One of the questions we get all the time as divorce attorneys is how are assets divided in a divorce in Tennessee? And so the law in Tennessee requires the judge to make an equitable division of marital assets, but equitable does not necessarily mean equal. Usually equal is the starting point, but it isn't necessarily equal. But what is an equitable division of assets? So if the parties are in somewhat similar financial positions, then equitable is probably equal. But there could be scenarios where equitable may be a disparate division of assets where one spouse might end up financially disadvantaged. But first we have to determine what is marital property and what is separate property, because only marital property is subject to division. So any significant assets that a party may have owned prior to the marriage would be separate property. Retirement that was earned prior to the marriage, inheritance is separate property. The shorter term marriage, the shorter a marriage is, the more likely it is that the assets that were owned prior to the marriage remain separate. But in a long-term marriage, a lot of times property that was separate prior to the marriage over time might end up becoming marital property. We call that transmutation. But it's possible to take a home that was owned prior to the marriage, but over a series of years of a marriage, it can sort of be transformed into marital property. But first, there's a determination that has to be made as to what is marital, what is separate. Once that's determined, then we look at, okay, what is an equitable division of that property? Just because property was acquired or purchased with one spouse's income, and even if accounts were joint accounts, a lot of couples think that they're keeping their finances separate by having separate accounts. But keeping finances separate in separate accounts does not mean that it's separate property. All income earned during the marriage is marital property and is therefore subject to equitable division.